matter where you go, there you are.
What would Steven Spielberg's War of the Worlds have in common with Adam McKay's Talladega Nights? Me. Let me explain. I'd been a comic book writer, artist, and editor in New York in the 1990s before moving to California and becoming a storyboard artist in the 2000s. In the spring of 2005, I began working on Talladega Nights. In July, the production moved to North Carolina, where most of the filming would take place. I had a week off while they set up a production office in Charlotte. While I was waiting to join them, I took an overnight trip to attend Comic-Con in San Diego on July 16th and 17th. I'd attended the convention many times going back to my days in the comic book industry. By Saturday afternoon, I felt like I'd seen everything I came for. I walked over to Horton Plaza, a multi-level outdoor shopping mall that housed the downtown area's only movie theaters. Steven Spielberg's War of the Worlds opened 2 weeks earlier. Between work and my family, our daughter Celia was 5 and our son Roman 2, I hadn't had time to see it yet. Most people I know in the film industry think about how each movie is made while they're watching it, from camera angles to art direction to editing and more. I've been that way my whole life. I get my popcorn and sit down. Credits roll. The movie starts. Morgan Freeman gives us the standard War of the Worlds voiceover that explains what's happening to the audience. After that, we spend the next 15 minutes getting to know Tom Cruise, his job on the docks, his sports car, his ex-wife, and his strained relationship with their 2 kids. Suddenly, the greatest lightning storm in history hits his neighborhood in Bayonne, New Jersey. All electricity is knocked out. Tom tells his kids to stay put and runs off to investigate. Soon after, the alien invaders emerge spectacularly from under the streets in their giant tripod machines. Terrified people take cover. In short order, the aliens open fire with their deadly heat rays and start blasting everything and everyone in sight. Cruise runs for his life and barely escapes the first attack. He races home and grabs some supplies. He takes his kids to the gas station on the corner and steals the only working vehicle for miles. It's not important to this video, but I included this shot because it was the highlight of the 2006 Super Bowl commercials. It's a clever combination of a CGI bridge and highway and miniature building explosions and great compositing. At this point, Cruise and his kids make their way through stopped traffic on what looks a lot like the Garden State Parkway. Here's where it gets interesting. The next 2 or 3 minutes appear to be one long continuous shot, also known as a oneer, and it's pretty incredible. As the camera makes all kinds of fancy moves in and out and around stranded vehicles, I'm starting to get an idea how they did it. I thought they must have filmed the background on a moving vehicle that passed between and around the stopped vehicles to record the environment outside the van. Meanwhile, Tom and the kids were filmed in a prop vehicle on a blue screen stage 2,000 miles away. The van was probably mounted on a gimbal that moved and gave it bounce, while a motion control camera glided around the van to capture the appropriate angles needed for the shot. The window in and out threw me. I thought maybe there was an opening in the roof of the van that allowed a camera on an arm to pass through and exit on the other side. The footage was recycled as some of the backgrounds passed by the windows more than once, like an old Hanna-Barbera cartoon. Many of the vehicles whizzing past in the foreground are likely computer graphics too. Later, someone sitting at a computer in a dark room at a visual effects company in Northern California would marry the 2 images together to make this exciting scene play out. Even as the camera moved in and out of the stopped traffic and pedestrians, circling around and even through the van Tom was driving, without stopping or cutting away, a light bulb went off in my head. "Hey, turn that off!" "Oh, sorry." After dinner, I went back to my hotel room. There was nothing else I wanted to see at Comic-Con, so I got up at 6 a.m. Sunday and drove back to Burbank. War of the Worlds gave me an idea for Talladega Nights that I drew up as soon as I got home. As the rest of this wonder plays out, I want to say that I found War of the Worlds to be very uneven, unlike the rest of Steven's films. I understand he didn't want to repeat the scientist protagonist who tells the military what to do. The everyman idea of Tom Cruise's Ray Ferrier, like Richard Dreyfuss in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, was the difference in his desire to make this film. However, it's still a Tom Cruise movie. It has to be Tom, not the military guys who seem more fixated on keeping people in line than watching the aliens who spots the birds landing on the tripods. In the end, he tells the military how to bring down the tripods after all. A major problem for me is I never found Cruise to be likable. His kids were probably more true to life than most movie kid characters, like the kids in Steven's Jurassic Park, but I wanted to throttle both of them. However, I can't imagine how my own kids would react to something like that at similar ages. The movie came to a crashing halt for me when Cruise and Dakota Fanning meet Tim Robbins' deranged character in the basement of his house. The end of that segment seemed to echo Orson Welles' demise in The Third Man, but completely lacked the gravitas only Welles could bring to it. I went to North Carolina armed with my idea how to repurpose that shot from War of the Worlds in my current assignment, Talladega Nights. I showed director Adam McKay my quick storyboard of a shot based, but not copied, on the Spielberg version. He said, "Great, let's do it." I imagined the camera following the cars from a helicopter above them, swooping down as low as safely possible before using CGI, computer graphics imagery, to replace Will Ferrell's car and pass through the rear window. A motion control camera would then pick up the shot after it dissolves through the glass to dolly past Will at the wheel before pivoting and backing out through the front windshield the same way it came in, resuming its path back into the sky with the aid of CGI and the helicopter. I discussed the shot with VFX supervisor Joseph Conmey when he arrived a month later. I left the production a week after that. We stayed in touch back in California. Joe became an executive, then senior vice president of visual effects at 20th Century Fox Studios. We spoke about the Talladega Nights shot a couple of years later. He said they ended up using CGI to create everything except the motion control shot inside the prop racing car. In 2005, I hadn't thought about the extent to which computer graphics had progressed at that point, but it made sense. Whether it's a reimagining, an homage, a repurposing, or a direct copy, many shots have been duplicated over the past 100 years of cinema. Even with the advent of computer graphics and now AI, there's little you can do that hasn't been done before in one way or another. Brian De Palma created a classic train station sequence by appropriating elements of Sergei Eisenstein's Odessa step scene in Battleship Potemkin for his hit film The Untouchables, but only after the original scene of a gun battle on a period train was too expensive to film. Sometimes necessity is truly the mother of invention, or imitation. The resulting 9.5-minute Union Station shootout is one of the greatest action set pieces in the history of film. Comedy and fantasy are ripe for copying good ideas. A simple prop like a boombox can provide a great comedic punch. Genre-defining films like Star Wars, Avatar, and Lord of the Rings provide a trove of situations, ideas, and gags that will be harvested by filmmakers for generations to come. The Matrix series is no exception, with the latest entry at times even cannibalizing itself. And I'm not sure if it's a new high or low, but the trailer for Star Wars Rogue One swiped a shot from Blue Thunder that isn't even in the finished film. I'm going a little off the reservation now with a specific shot that's more a bit of camera work. It's called a lot of different things, but people like me in the industry call it Zolly. After Steven Spielberg used Alfred Hitchcock's dizzying camera move from Vertigo to unsettle audiences watching Jaws, the floodgates opened for decades of additional use, or abuse depending on how you see it, in every genre, including animation. Foreground and background images alternately shrink or balloon as the camera lens rotates in one direction, while the camera itself simultaneously moves toward or away from the focus of the shot, the midground subject. Steven continues to use it in his films whenever appropriate, like this shot from E.T., seen here in the bottom of the frame. And leave it to Sam Raimi's stylized neo-western, The Quick and the Dead, with every shot in the film storyboarded by Doug Leffler, to unleash the longest string of Zolly shots in a row that I've ever seen. Dramamine, anyone? One last note. In 2011, I went to work on Spielberg's Robopocalypse, a huge sci-fi film that he never made. For the first 9 months of the 2-year span I spent on the project, I sat next to Dorian Bustamante, who is now a layout supervisor for feature animation at the Walt Disney Company in Burbank, California. Dorian was the computer pre-visualization artist who created the CGI blueprint for the van shot in War of the Worlds that I reimagined for Talladega Nights. That's Dorian with Steven in behind-the-scenes footage from War of the Worlds, as well as several of the scenes Dorian pre-visualized for the film. The short production schedule on War of the Worlds and the success of pre-visualization on George Lucas's Star Wars prequels, which Dorian also worked on, led to a more calculated use of storyboards, with Steven giving his own drawings directly to the pre-visualization team. Steven worked side by side with the storyboard and pre-visualization artists, cutting down on the usual amount of time it takes to process chunks of storyboards before they go to the previs team. I told Dorian what I'd done on Talladega Nights and showed him a quick drawing of how I thought they made the shot for War of the Worlds. He said I wasn't far off. He told me that the shot that went through the rear window and back out again was actually two separate shots, one with a camera outside circling the car and one inside that matched the first camera's movement. The two shots were then seamlessly blended together behind the posts that separated the windows. Some of the glass in the windows, including reflections, was also added in post-production. The glass would have reflected the cameras and studio lights on the stage if they were still in place during filming. That's movie magic. Well, that's it for this short take from Hollywood Storyboards. If you like my little peeks under the hood of movie making, be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons on your way out, and ring that bell to get notified when new entries are added. Thanks!